Time to get busy at this motherfucker.
Yo, thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Kolby Jordan Podcast. It's the one and only Kolby Jordan. Today's topic is a tough one for me, I ain't gonna lie. The psychological sense of forgiveness. And before I go any further, I like to say forgiveness is easier said than done. Let me just say that. It's definitely hard, but I feel like it can benefit not only mental health, but physical and emotional health as well. First, we have to understand what forgiveness is. And to understand what forgiveness is, you have to understand what it isn't. It doesn't mean condoning what a person did to you. It doesn't mean disregarding our feelings, and it doesn't mean forgetting about the pain somebody caused you. Forgiving means letting go of that resentment that keeps us anchored down. And what I mean by that is that when we hold on to this negative emotion, it can weigh us down and keep us stuck in the past, I feel like. And it's definitely kept me there. You know, the older I get, the more I understand that unforgiveness can hold you captive from achieving personal and emotional well-being. You know, me not forgiving my mother has anchored me down my whole adulthood. You know, living with this persistent anger, which gave me a negative outlook on life, having internal conflict because of held-on grudges, and it impacted my self-worth and my self-esteem as well. You know, those are just a few aspects of what opened my eyes to forgiveness. And one huge step I took was deciding to forgive, you know, but before that I had to acknowledge and accept the hurt and be understanding on how it's affected me, because your feelings is valid. Let me say that again. Your feelings is valid, and they are valid, you know, but when in this process of forgiving, try to reflect on the bigger picture. Consider the reasons behind, you know, the other person's actions in a broader context. We're all human and everybody is flawed, and we all make mistakes. When somebody wrongs us, it's often a reflection of their own internal conflicts, you know, or personal challenges, or, you know, just personal stuff, you know, rather than a direct initial attack on us. You know, people are driven by their own fears, insecurities, past experiences, and circumstances. You know, to make it easier to forgive, you have to empathize with their perspective. You know, putting ourselves in other people's shoes and understanding their motives and their feelings. You know, I know what you're thinking, Kobe. It sounds like you justifying what they've done to me. Nah, I'm not justifying what they've done to you. I'm just trying to help you see that people often act out of their own unresolved issues and misunderstandings. And like I said before, we have to understand the person's perspective, and we also have to play the role of empathy. And having empathy allows us to step outside of our own pain, which I think can reduce the intensity of negative emotions and your negative emotions, and, you know, restore peace, or at least have a little grace when it comes to just forgiving and understanding. Because at the end of the day, the decision to forgive is about reclaiming your peace and your peace of mind, and, you know, freeing yourself from the grip of resentment rather than freeing others from the consequences of their actions or behaviors. And that grip of resentment can have a hold on your emotional state until you decide to release it. I ain't gonna lie to you. Unlike momentary anger, resentment is that emotional state that lingers over time. Each and every day, it's a mix of anger, bitterness, and disappointment, you know, from the person or people that wronged us or mistreated us, you know, but we have to release it and move forward. A lot of people think that forgiveness requires a rekindling or some sort of reconciliation or reestablishing of a relationship. You can forgive somebody and still decide that it's best to not fuck with them or repair the relationship, you know, which is a separate process that may or may not be appropriate depending on the circumstance, you know. Forgiving also doesn't mean forgetting either. A lot of people believe that to forgive, you have to erase the memory of offense and disrespect. You know, remembering what happened is a part of acknowledging the reality of the situation, which can be used for, you know, setting boundaries. And I feel like it's good to set those boundaries in the state of forgiveness, especially when you want to reestablish the relationship. You know, setting those boundaries ensure that both sides understand what's acceptable and what's not acceptable, which could possibly prevent future conflict. But at the end of the day, you can't put yourself at risk by allowing that person who hurt you or offended you continue that behavior. With that being said, in some cases, forgiveness doesn't always have to be communicated. It doesn't always have to be communicated directly, to the person who wronged us. Forgiveness is primarily about your own emotional healing. Communicating that you're forgiving someone may provide a sense of closure, but communicating your forgiveness can also sometimes come off negatively or have negative consequences. The person you're communicating your, forgiveness to may feel defensive or may be defensive. They might feel like, they're accused of wrongdoing, which, they might not always agree with. They might have a big ego or have too much pride, and people like that already have a difficult time admitting fault anyway, so especially if it's challenging their self-image. All I'm saying is, if you're going to communicate forgiveness to the person you're forgiving, prepare for a range of responses. Just prepare for that. But before that, choose the right approach and choose the right time. Forgiving in silence is the most common, I feel like. It allows you to process your feelings eternally without all the external validation or confrontation. I call that emotional resilience and emotional maturity. Everything doesn't have to be spoken about. Emotional resilience is all about self-control and your mental strength, the demonstration to resolve issues by yourself independently. And when you do that, you tend to respond with grace rather than reacting with anger. So in conclusion, if you're choosing to forgive, I commend you. It's hard forgiving when you're mistreated, but like I said before, once you're open to the forgiveness, you open the door to free yourself from resentment, if you know what I mean. Like, it breaks the cycle of hurt, it promotes peace, it promotes well-being, balance, and it could possibly reduce the risk of high blood pressure. I'm just saying, for real though. I could go on and on about, forgiving and the art of forgiveness, but that's all I got for right now. If you made it to the end of this segment, like, comment, subscribe, and try to guess the instrumental in the background for a free Kolby Jordan Podcast item. So I appreciate y'all listening. This is the Kolby Jordan Podcast, your digital therapy. Peace.